welcome to Half the Battle. Today we're going back to the comic.
And we'll be looking at issue 58, Cobra Commander Reborn. Except the issue isn't actually called Cobra Commander Reborn, but rather Desperate Moves, even though it says Cobra Commander Reborn right there on the cover. They pulled this in the last issue of the regular comic too, where the cover sat side by side with Destro, while the title was Strange Bedfellows. This time there's at least an excuse for having two titles, as this comic tells two stories. One involving Cobra Commander, obviously, and another one with Dusty and Mainframe.
The comic jumps back and forth between these two stories, but we're gonna tackle them one at a time.
And we'll be starting with the Joes, so the Desperate Moves part. We start off somewhere in the Middle East, as a caption so helpfully tells us, where a convoy is ambushed by a rebel attack, aided by Dusty and Mainframe.
Because only good things ever come from interfering in the Middle East.
This also happens to be a 13-year-old kid's first battle, something Mainframe objects to, but Dusty says it's normal there, and there were younger drummer boys in the Civil War.
Well, yeah, I mean it was stupid back then too.
Anyway, since the Joes helped them, they in turn will get help finding their own objective, being guided by the brat himself. I call him a brat because he immediately disses Mainframe, preferring to ride with Dusty, a real soldier, not a fixer of computers.
Kid obviously never had his computer crash in the middle of editing a video, otherwise he'd be more appreciative.
This is where the comic switches to Cobra Commander, but we're sticking with our desert adventure where it has gotten dark and Dusty smells something, so he goes out to investigate. Rashid wants to go with him, but Mainframe is having none of it, which the kid calls shameful. Mainframe explains Dusty is the expert here, and them fumbling around in the dark would just get in his way. And sure enough, after seeing some fireworks far off, Dusty returns carrying all the weapons he captured. Yeah, and way to ruin his night vision there, dude. The comic tries to build some tension before this, hiding the identity of the person coming back.
But come on, everybody knew it'd be Dusty.
He explains he smelled cigarette smoke, so he knew bandits were out there, as the kid looks at him in loving awe. Though to me, that looks kinda creepy.
Getting some Doki Doki flashbacks here.
Later, they arrive at an oil storage facility and get in with no problem, learning the tanks are hollow. They find a hidden switch, though that looks more like a button to me, that opens a hidden door. Inside, a Cobra Terrordrome is revealed. It turns out the Joes got suspicious after satellite pictures revealed there were no pipes coming in or out of this so-called oil storage tank, and it looked funky on infrared. The reason they're there is to use the actual Cobra computer to make sense of the plans they got from Destro last issue. Rashid wants to hear of Dusty's battles, but he says he could learn a lot more from Mainframe, though the brat calls him an old woman full of book learning.
Yeah, lots of those are expert computer hackers, I'm sure.
Still, he goes to see what Mainframe is up to, which is computer stuff, obviously. He's getting circuit diagrams and then uses a telephone modem to call G.I.Joe headquarters and send them the info. I remember seeing one of those in the War Games movie.
We may mock, but this was the finest internet technology the 80s had to offer, folks.
And sure enough, the Joes back home are getting everything. Destro also gave them the passwords: greed, ambition, and ruthlessness. Oh yeah, those are some complex and secure access codes right there.
That's amazing. I've got the same combination on my luggage.
I know it was the 80s, but still, codes were more secure even back then. Anyway, Rashid, being the little jerk that he is, remarks they went through all that crap just to make a phone call, calling Mainframe shameful again when he points out using your head is better than fighting. While all of this has been going on, guards have found a hole in the fence and have been approaching our hero's location.
Well, our two heroes and one whiny little brat.
They blindside Dusty and take him out, then order the other two to surrender. Mainframe does so and even slaps away the kid's gun. He then gets on his knees begging for mercy, disgusting not just Rashid, but even the bad guys. He even offers to lick their boots.
And you know where this is going.
Yeah, he throws down the guy going for the kick, punches the second one out, and takes out the first with a kick to the head. Quick, decisive, and a huge surprise to everybody except the reader. They're still surrounded, mind you, but they are in a Cobra base that can launch an aircraft, so they do just that. And the Firebat strafes their enemies on autopilot no less, meaning they can use the distraction to get the hell out of there.
Which is cool and all, but they could have, I don't know, escaped in the aircraft.
That way, the G.I. Joe team would have a nice shiny new fire bat. Yes, I know it's a one-seater, but I'm sure they could have crammed in there. Then again, that would mean two grown men crammed into a cockpit with a 13-year-old boy.
Joey, have you ever been in a Turkish prison?
You know what? Forget I suggested anything.
And the comic ends with them riding into the sunrise, Rashid asking why Mainframe didn't just tell him he was a badass. But Dusty explains he's an old soldier that doesn't need to prove himself anymore, and an old soldier wins by just surviving. And that was Desperate Moves. Overall, this comic was...
Will you acknowledge me?
Oh right, the Cobra Commander story.
You know, the one on the cover. We'll take a look at that right now, starting with said cover. It shows off Cobra Commander's new action figure, new battle armor, as he stands triumphantly over his comatose son. Okay, weird pose to strike in that situation, though he could be angry and shouting no or something. His body language could have been a bit clearer, is what I'm saying.
Anyway,
the story begins with Cobra Commander, still dressed as Ned Flanders' dad, arriving at a garage in an ambulance. Jumping slightly ahead, the ambulance has Billy, his son, in it, who's comatose. Now, the last time we saw these two, they were in a hospital. So I'd really like to know how A, he got his son out of there, and B, how he got a freaking ambulance. But they leave that part of the story out.
which is a real shame because it sounds like it would be an interesting adventure, full of violence or subterfuge. But alas, we'll never know.
So anyway, he arrives at his garage and acts like he owns the place, despite the mechanic's objections. He explains that he's Cobra Commander and has come to activate Fred 7 as a Crimson Guard. Yeah, they're all called Fred for some reason.
I myself would have picked Steve. I don't know why.
For proof, Hipster CC gives him the secret handshake and the passwords. Greed, ambition and ruthlessness. Wait, those are the same passwords they use for the computer?
Dear Lord, the Commander has the same passwords for everything. I don't even use the same password on 2 different G.I. Joe message boards. No wonder Cobra gets compromised so often.
The Commander is there because he believes this Fred is the only one who can help his son. That's because he's got a secret lab where he works on robotic parts to aid in human movement. Also, there's birds. In a bit of ominous foreshadowing, well, for a G.I. Joe fan anyway, Fred explains they belong to his accountant who was discovered by Destro. But Fred really wants to show off his side project, a brand new suit of battle armor. The Commander seems to forget about his son for a moment as he tries out his new toy.
Pun very much intended.
He checks out the sensors, the strength amplifiers, and finds out it's bulletproof. Okay, this is the only part of the entire comic I just don't buy.
Cobra Commander would never ever let himself get shot at in a brand new untested suit like that.
Even Mr. Same Passwords for Everything wouldn't be that stupid. Or at the very least, he wouldn't trust anybody enough to allow that. The fun is over when they hear noises coming from the garage, where they find Billy, who has miraculously and very conveniently just woken up from his coma.
The coma he's been in for 15 issues, or well over a year.
Even more conveniently, he's lost his memory. And the story ends with the Commander telling him he's Billy's father, and Fred is gonna make him better again. And that was Cobra Commander Reborn. Though it's less about being reborn and more about getting a new suit. And look, I get that the comic has to include new toys to advertise them to kids. That's the deal with the devil, I mean Hasbro, that Marvel made.
But it hurts the story here.
Hell, the Commander's part is only like 5 pages long. Most of the comic is devoted to 2.5 Men Middle East Edition. So those 5 pages should have been solely focused on the Commander's anguish over Billy, or, even better, how he escaped with his comatose son in an ambulance. Oh well, at least the suit will still become important later. The name of the comic, Desperate Moves, applies to both stories. To Joe's needing that computer uplink, and the Commander needing help for his son.
So it fits.
As for the Middle East story, it was fine, but you could see the so-called twist coming a mile away, so it was more about waiting for the little brat to get his comeuppance. And his uppance did come. It's weird how similar this story was to the last Special Missions comic we looked at, with the same thing happening in regards to Lifeline. Though there he didn't impress a 13-year-old boy, but rather a big-tittied river pirate, so a point to Lifeline there. Overall, it was an okay comic.
Not great, but also not bad.
And it's an important issue because it sets up big stuff for later. And I'm not talking about the introduction of freaking Raptor that's coming. So I do recommend you read it.
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?